Hi everyone, Paul here from FamilyWheels.ca with another car review for your growing family. And hot off the heels of last week's review where we looked at the brand new 8th generation Toyota Camry with its more conventional gasoline engine on board, this time around we're in its hybrid sibling. And I'm pretty excited here to see how they compare to one another. Now if you are looking for our more typical review where we do our standardized trunk test, our standardized car seat test, make sure to click the link right up here because you're going to find that in last week's review. This time around I want to focus more specifically on what makes the hybrid stand out. And Toyota has done a lot here with this latest generation of the Camry Hybrid. They've shaved grams where they could to help with efficiency, yet they've found ways to improve its performance. I want to get out of the cold, hop on board this thing, see if it's all paid off. It's the new Camry Hybrid this week on Family Wheels. So let's break down the trims here quickly for you because there are three choices that you can look at in the Camry Hybrid. There's the LE starting at just under $31,500 Canadian, and Toyota kicked up standard equipment by a considerable notch for 2018. 17-inch alloy wheels, heated front seats, a smart key with push button start, a nice clear 7-inch infotainment system with a rear backup camera, and Toyota's new Entune software featuring Scout GPS. I'll get to a bit more of that in a bit. There's also a drive mode select function that allows you to shift between economy, normal, and sport modes depending on your mood. And we also have Toyota Safety Sense coming on all Camrys now too. That gives you adaptive cruise, lane departure warning, lane keep assist, pedestrian detection, forward collision mitigation braking, auto high beams. It's the kind of suite of safety features that you really didn't expect to see on a car starting at this price point until a couple of years ago, and we've got that now standard on all Camrys right across the line. Now, if you want your Camry Hybrid served up with a side of sportiness, the SE adds body moldings, a spoiler, 18-inch rims, paddle shifters, and a wireless charging station for your phone. Then this XLE trim that I'm driving around here this week is the chart topper. It comes in almost $10,000 more expensive than the LE Camry Hybrid, but it has a lot on board. Adding leather, a 360-degree parking camera, a heads-up display projected right on the windshield, a JBL sound system, sunroof, and built-in navigation, which has been a really nice thing to use this week after I wrestled with that Scout GPS in last week's review. This is Toyota's new answer to a smartphone-based navigation system. It comes on lower trims, and it was still very buggy for me and had me wishing that Toyota had just gone with the tried and tested Android Auto or Apple CarPlay like we see across much of the rest of the industry. But the two real showpieces here in the new Camry Hybrid are kind of tucked away out of sight. The car is now based on the company's new global design platform, which vastly improves the ride of this car with more rigidity and also helps with its handling because of a lower center of gravity. And then there's the next generation Toyota hybrid system, a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine that's smaller, lighter, and far more efficient than the outgoing Camry. When I say that Toyota was shaving grams in this car, I'm not kidding here. They looked at everything from the motor to the battery packs to even the computer chips to find ways to make it lighter, and it seems to have paid off. Toyota pegged the 2017, the outgoing Camry in the LE trim, at an overall average of 5.9 liters per 100 kilometers. Now they're saying we should see 4.9 liters per 100 kilometers. That's a 17% improvement. But unlike the current generation of the Prius, where I was able to match those projected fuel economy numbers, I just haven't been able to get there here in the Camry this week. Now granted, we have seen some pretty chilly days. Cold weather kind of kills a hybrid's efficiency. Keeping the cabin warm, more demands on the batteries, beefier winter tires, it all kind of adds up. But in the cold, we've been seeing pretty well exactly the same fuel economy as we saw in the conventional 4-cylinder Camry last week. That's in a temperature below minus 10 degrees Celsius. And while there were marked improvements when it warmed up above freezing, I saw 5.5 liters per 100 kilometers at times, I never quite hit the numbers that Toyota suggests. And if you're a techie and you're hoping that this EV button down here might come to save the day, it doesn't. It stands for electric vehicle mode and lets you run the car strictly off the battery pack without dipping into the combustion engine. But even if I think about putting my foot down on the gas pedal, I'm booted out of EV mode and forced back into a more typical hybrid system. I have been in some other vehicles that have managed to pull off a pretty decent EV mode, like that Hyundai Ioniq that I was in last year. You could cruise around in the city at decent speeds without ever busting into the combustion engine. But here in the Toyota family of vehicles, it's just not quite there. I saw the same in the Prius. If you want to go any speed at all, anything beyond crawling around in a parking lot, it's just not going to work. It's a party trick that just falls flat at this point. Now, if you're looking for a more true EV experience, I asked Toyota Canada if there's a plug-in hybrid version of the Camry in the works, and they didn't want to comment on that at this point. They don't talk about future projects, but I'd be surprised if there wasn't one, because it seems to be the way that manufacturers are going. Like, it'll be the next step before we go to strictly electric vehicles mainstream. Now, talking about EV modes and fuel economies and all the rest, it seems like as good a time as any to talk about the two battery choices that you've got here in the Camry. As I already mentioned, the batteries are now smaller and lighter for 2018, which means they can now be moved from the trunk, where they gobbled up available cargo space, and are stowed under the second row seats. And there are a couple of options for the type of batteries to throw in the Camry. People who weight efficiency above comfort should consider the basic LE trim, because it comes with lithium-ion batteries, and those will maximize your fuel economy. Meanwhile, Toyota says SE and XLE buyers want more features. Those draw more power and therefore a less efficient and actually cheaper to buy nickel metal hydride battery pack is used in those upper trims. And since this style of battery doesn't reach the same efficiency as the lithium ions, we see the LE actually putting out better fuel economy numbers as our tester here this week. And that might be one of the reasons why we're not getting quite the fuel economy that Toyota's saying we should see. Now, here's something that surprised me about driving around in this car that I wasn't expecting to enjoy as much as I am, and that's its continuously variable transmission. It actually totally had me fooled that I was driving a conventional automatic until I drove it home to look at the specs. Unlike the CVT in another Toyota that we were testing recently, the CHR, that was honestly pretty awful, this CVT pairs up well, delivering power when you need it without that surging that you get that can really plague some CVT-equipped cars. One thing that I do miss, though, here in this XLE trim that we had in our SE trim last week that we were testing, paddle shifters on the steering wheel. I know that it might seem weird that you'd have paddle shifters in a hybrid vehicle, but it is available in the SE hybrid, and it's nice to have them for gearing down into a stoplight or if you're going down a big hill. They're just something that kind of adds one extra bit of flavor to the car. And while we're talking about driving feel, you might find that the Camry Hybrid has slightly touchier brakes than you're used to. This is often the case with hybrids because of their regenerative braking systems that take energy out of all those braking forces and put the power back into the battery packs. It's not a bad brake feel, but just more sensitive than you might be used to. Overall, I've got to be honest, I actually find that this hybrid Camry is a more pleasant driving vehicle than the conventional four-cylinder that we were driving around last week. After you combine its electric and gasoline motors, it has 208 horsepower, which actually edges out the four-cylinder Camry by 5 horses. Now, it's no race car, but it's certainly not as dull as many other earlier generation hybrids that I've driven either. But at the end of it all, is the Camry Hybrid worth the roughly $5,000 bump in price over its more basic gasoline sibling? I think it's going to depend on how and where you drive this thing. If you've got a lead foot and long cold winters, this car's fuel economy might not be as stellar as you'd hope. But drive the Camry Hybrid with care in warmer conditions and you're gonna see returns at the pump for sure, in a car that offers up far better looks, standard features, and performance than the outgoing version. But let's get you to chime in on the Camry Hybrid now. Let us know what you think. Is it worth the extra cheddar over its more basic gasoline equivalent? Leave a comment below and subscribe while you're at it, and then make sure to check back in next week, because if you're into hybrid vehicles but you want a little bit more luxury, you want all-wheel drive, you want the versatility of a crossover vehicle, we're going to be in the new Lexus NX Hybrid in about 7 days from now. That'll be next time I see you right here on Family Wheels.